Happy Holidays 2024 from the short story universe. As we wrap up an incredible year filled with thrilling tales, epic adventures, and unforgettable characters, we want to take a moment to celebrate you, our amazing audience. Whether you're here for comics, drama, action, fantasy, or a mix of it all, your support fuels our creativity and brings our stories to life. Again, happy holidays, and thank you for being part of the short story universe. Thanks for clicking on my video, The Brand Name Short Story Universe Deep Dive. To fully enjoy this video, please ensure CC closed captions aka subtitles is turned on. I'm Vandale, the only creator of this brand new comic book universe called Short Story Universe, which is filled with epic tales. There's drama, comedy, science fiction, fantasy, intriguing characters, and more. From breathtaking battles to heartwarming dialogue and romantic moments, I've got a story for everyone, ages 8 to 80. Each upload is packed with imagination, designed to pull you into stories where heroes and villains come to life, cities and planets exist in beautiful, intricate locations, and thrilling adventures on planet Earth that take you across the galaxy. Did I mention the AI podcasters included in some videos that deep dive further into the story? Wait till you hear them. They're amazing. For this video, I thought I'd share how I chose the brand name of Short Story Universe. I knew my brand name needed to have the word group, world, universe, or something that says it's all connected under one brand, the same as the DCEU and the MCU. Universe stood out to me. Then, Short Story Universe popped into my head. This was all rapid-fire thinking, by the way. Meaning, this took like 30 seconds or less to come up with Short Story Universe. Plus, the acronym SSU fits right in with the DCEU and the MCU. So, I had a good feeling that I was off to the right start. Yet, the term short story paused me for a second. Normally a short story means a story that's short. Yet, I quickly started thinking outside the box. Thinking a short story could be 2 paragraphs, 2 pages, 200 pages, or even 2,000 pages. Yet, it's still just a short story. This thinking sat me up in my computer chair and put a huge smile on my face. Because it's very true. Let's use a 2-hour movie as an example. Let's say this movie is a part of a new movie franchise. Even though the movie was 2 hours long, it's still just a short story or a fraction or part of the bigger story. This means there are way more stories/movies coming soon. Also, my thinking/mindset going into comic book storytelling was: do not try to reinvent the comic book wheel, so to speak. Take what's out there, the epic, fantastic, over-the-top, etc. energies, and add to it. So, there's a DCEU and an MCU, and I was creating the SSU. Perfect. It fits in. LOL. Speaking of energies, I've always felt positive energies all around me. No joke. I'm a huge fan of old classic TV shows like The Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock, One Step Beyond, Night Gallery, etc. Plus, I've never been to Walt Disney World, yet I sometimes feel Walt's energies and the energies of the creators of those old, classic TV shows I mentioned all around me. It's like feeling a warm hand on your shoulder, saying, "You're doing good. Just keep going." I'm a dude, but I get teary-eyed whenever I feel like that's what the energies are saying. So, that's my story of how I was thinking outside the box when coming up with the brand name/title Short Story Universe. Remember, every story is a short story. What happened before that? What's going to happen next? Heads up! New videos drop every Wednesday through Saturday. Holiday uploads may vary. Season's greetings. Vandale. Up next are 2 AI podcasters who deep dive more into this and the short story universe. Enjoy.
All right, diving in today, we're going deep into the mind of Vandale.
The creator of the short story universe.
Yeah, got an excerpt here, a transcript. And, well, he talks about, how he came up with that name.
Short story universe.
And it's kind of a fascinating ride. Like, we're really trying to get into not just what the name is, but, like, the why behind it.
Yeah, those little decisions can be really telling, about the creator's process and how they think.
Exactly. And Vandale seems to be all about these bold choices. Right off the bat, he's like, I want a name.
Like what?
Like world or universe.
Yeah.
Big impact.
Yeah.
Right away, everything's connected. But then he kind of lands on short story universe.
SSU for short.
In like 30 seconds.
Wow, that's fast.
So that rapid fire decision making, I don't know, what do you think that says about him as a creator?
I mean, it could suggest he's someone who's very instinctual.
Right.
Trusts his gut. Goes with those first sparks of inspiration.
Yeah. Trusts his gut. Right. Like, boom, that's it. And then maybe he builds on that initial foundation as he goes. But it's interesting. The SSU, it fits right in with the other big ones.
Oh, yeah, your DCEUs, your MCUs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it just slots right in there.
Yeah, that acronym works really well.
But then there's the whole short story thing. Because, traditionally, it implies a certain length.
Traditionally, yeah.
Yeah.
But, he completely flips that expectation on its head.
He does.
He's basically saying a short story can be any length as long as it's like a fraction of a bigger story.
Yeah.
It's less about the actual word count and more about how it functions within the bigger picture.
Yeah. And he even uses the example of like a 2-hour movie, within a franchise.
Oh, interesting.
And suddenly it's like, whoa, short story. It's not about the time. It's really about how it fits in.
Yeah. Like a building block.
Exactly.
A piece of a larger whole.
Which makes me think about this idea of, the short story concept.
Mm-hmm.
How does that challenge, like, the way we traditionally think about comic book structure?
Well, if every story is a short story, in a sense, it could lead to a more, maybe more interconnected approach to storytelling.
Right.
Maybe a more modular approach to comic book arcs.
Yeah, more modular, yeah, definitely. Because, and knowing Vandale, he's not, like, trying to completely reinvent the wheel when it comes to, classic comic book tropes. Classic energies, so to speak. He's talking about building on what's already there, but with his own unique spin on it.
So he's very aware of the history of comic books.
Yeah.
But he's also eager to bring something new to the conversation.
Right. And it makes me think about how he talks about being inspired by, like, classic TV shows.
Oh, like what?
Like The Twilight Zone or Alfred Hitchcock Presents, all those, kind of masters of suspense and atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
And he even mentions feeling the energies of Walt Disney. And that's where it gets really interesting for me. Because he's not just watching these shows, it's like he's absorbing their creative energy, almost tapping into like a lineage of storytellers.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And he calls it feeling a warm hand of encouragement.
Warm hand.
Yeah. Sounds a little mystical.
A little bit.
But it also speaks to, I think, that deep passion that fuels creators like him.
Right. It's like a driving force.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, like, how does that translate to the actual stories he's choosing to tell within the SSU?
So we know he mentions everything from drama, comedy, sci-fi, fantasy.
It's a real mix.
But it's the way he talks about, like, balancing breathtaking battles.
Yeah.
With, like, intriguing characters and heartwarming dialogue. That really makes me curious.
It's almost like he wants those classic comic book thrills.
Right.
But also grounded in something real, genuine human connection. And it makes you wonder if those classic TV show influences are shaping the tone.
Oh, absolutely.
The themes of his stories.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if those shows are any indication, we might be seeing some focus on human nature.
Yeah.
Maybe a touch of the uncanny, the unexpected.
Oh, yeah, I could definitely see that.
And then he says every story is a short story, which is kind of a clue, I think, to how he sees this idea of interconnectedness.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like this idea that every piece, no matter how small, contributes to the bigger picture.
Like a tapestry.
Yeah. And thankfully, he's promising new SSU content regularly.
Well, that's good to know.
So we're going to get to see how all of this plays out, but I'm curious, as we go deeper into Vandale's world, what are you most curious to kind of unearth?
Well, I'm really interested in seeing how his short story philosophy might be reflected in the actual structure of the comics. Like, does it lead to shorter arcs, more interconnected storylines, or maybe even a different approach to world building altogether?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, how does that warm hand of inspiration manifest itself in the stories themselves? What are the energies that he's channeling into the SSU? I guess we're going to have to keep digging to find out. But I have a feeling it's going to be a fascinating journey.
Oh, I think so too. It's almost like, each story has its own life, but it's also a part of this much bigger thing.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point.
And, he also mentions this thing about not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
But building upon those existing comic book tropes. And energies.
Yeah. It really stands out to me, too, that he has this respect for the foundation,
Yeah.
that's already been laid. He's not trying to, throw it all away.
Right. He's building on it. He's appreciating that history.
Exactly.
And, it's interesting how he ties that in with, his whole talk about those classic shows and feeling their energies.
Yeah, the Twilight Zone and stuff.
It's almost like he's, drawing from this, lineage of creative energy.
It makes you wonder, if that warm hand he talks about
that warm hand
would lead to some unexpected twists on familiar themes. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. It could be subtle, like a character archetype that we all know.
Yeah.
But with a twist, like a unique backstory. Or maybe, a plot that subverts expectations.
Yeah, it's like working within a familiar framework, but injecting it with his own blend of inspiration.
Yeah, exactly.
And that might be, I think, what makes the SSU so intriguing to me is this idea of, he's offering something new.
Yeah.
But it's built on this foundation that, I think comic book fans already have this love for.
It's familiar, but it's also fresh.
It's both. Yes.
It's a tricky balance to strike.
It is.
But if he can do it, it'll be really compelling.
It will. And it makes you wonder, what types of stories can really thrive in this short story universe?
Well, we know he mentions drama, comedy, sci-fi, fantasy.
So it's wide open.
Yeah, it really is. But it's how he talks about balancing, breathtaking battles with intriguing characters and heartwarming dialogue. That's what really gets me.
It's like he's hinting at this universe where, the action and spectacle, it's all there, but it's grounded in real human connection.
Right. It's not just empty spectacle.
No.
There's heart to it.
You're going to see those epic battles, but they're driven by characters we actually care about.
Yeah. Characters who feel real, people you could meet.
Exactly. And that level of emotional depth, I think, could be what really sets the SSU apart.
Yeah.
It's not just about the spectacle, it's about the impact those events have on the characters and, by extension, us.
Right. On the readers.
Yes, exactly. And maybe those, those deeply human stories are where those Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock influences really come in.
Oh, yeah. Think about how those shows explored, the darker sides of human nature.
Yeah.
The moral dilemmas, the psychological twists and turns.
You're right. There's real potential for some, thought-provoking themes there. It might not be all, just superheroes and villains.
No.
There might be stories about, ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances, grappling with these big questions about what it means to be human.
Exactly.
And that's where I think his short story philosophy could get really interesting.
How so?
Because if each story is, self-contained, but it's also part of this larger narrative, those smaller, more character-driven moments, they could have, a ripple effect, across the entire universe.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
It's like each story becomes, a piece of this massive puzzle. And as we read more, you start to see those connections, those echoes of events and emotions that resonate, throughout the SSU.
It creates real depth and complexity.
Yeah.
Keeps people coming back for more. It's not just about individual stories. It's about how the whole universe is evolving.
Exactly. And with Vandale promising new content, dropping regularly, it sounds like we won't have to wait too long to see how he, brings all of this to life.
Right.
But before we get, too far ahead of ourselves,
I
want to circle back to something he said that really struck me.
What was that?
The whole every story is a short story thing.
Oh, yeah.
On the surface, it just sounds like, a clever word play.
Yeah.
But I think it goes deeper than that. I think it gets to the core of his overall philosophy.
Yeah. Like how he views storytelling itself.
How he views storytelling. Yeah. It suggests that, every story, no matter how big or small, is ultimately just a piece of a a much, much larger narrative. It's like even a single issue of a comic book, can have ripples that are felt across an entire universe. Just like, something small that happens in our lives can have unexpected consequences later on.
Wow. Yeah, that's really profound.
And it makes you wonder if he sees those connections like everywhere, not just in, fictional worlds,
right,
but in the real world too.
It could be what drives him to create these universes, right, to explore those connections, to find the meaning in all of it.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting thought. Like, he's deeply curious about the world and our place in it. And maybe that's the warm hand, that sense of purpose that fuels his creativity.
Like, he's not just telling stories. He's searching for something deeper.
Yes. And it connects us all. And in a world that often feels, fragmented and disconnected,
right,
that kind of exploration, I think, can be really powerful.
Absolutely.
It all goes back to this idea of building a universe. It's a massive undertaking, right? Like, what do you think draws creators like Vandale to this kind of challenge?
Well, there's a certain allure to creation on such a grand scale,
Right.
Building a world, like, with its own rules and history, all the possibilities, and I think there's a sense of ownership in that.
Oh, for sure, and freedom. It's like having this blank canvas, but instead of a painting, you're creating an entire world.
Exactly, with all its complexities, the contradictions, and within that world, you can explore, like, the biggest themes.
Yeah.
Good versus evil, the nature of humanity, that struggle for meaning, And you can really grapple with these ideas in a way that, you couldn't in a traditional story.
But it's not just, about these big ideas, right? I feel like there's also a sense of playfulness.
Absolutely. There's a joy in creating these intricate systems and seeing how they interact.
Right.
Like how characters bounce off each other, how storylines converge and diverge, like conducting this big experiment.
Yeah.
But with, like, characters and plots instead of test tubes.
Exactly. And the more you build, the more those possibilities just expand, right?
Of course.
New characters emerge, new conflicts, and suddenly the universe, it takes on a life of its own.
Yeah, it becomes this conversation between the creator and the creation.
Yeah.
And the audience. They become part of the dialogue.
Right. Piecing things together, trying to figure out what's next.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to Vandale's whole, short story concept. If everything's connected, right, every story contributes to this larger narrative. It changes how we experience those moments.
It adds weight. Like, even the smallest details can become really significant.
Right, like a throwaway line.
Right, could foreshadow a major event.
Yeah, exactly. Or, a choice that a minor character makes, it could have these huge repercussions.
Across the entire universe.
Yeah, and that level of connection, it makes the universe feel more real, more lived in.
Like a real place, yeah.
Like every action matters.
Every choice has consequences, and it makes you pay attention.
Oh, yeah. You're really drawn in.
You want to immerse yourself in that world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the mind of Vandale, right? The origin of the short story universe, what's the one thing you hope, our listener walks away with?
I hope they're inspired to think about the stories they're drawn to and why those worlds, those characters, those narratives resonate with them.
Yeah.
Like, what are the energies that speak to them, that make them feel something?
Yeah, because ultimately, whether we're creating our own universes or, exploring those created by others, it's that connection.
Yeah.
That sense of wonder that makes storytelling so powerful.
It reminds us that even in this vast universe, where every story is a short story, our own experiences, our choices, our stories matter.
Beautifully said. Well, until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep.
Remember, every story is a short story, and we've only just begun exploring the SSU together. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps the channel. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts and this video with your friends, family, or anyone who loves epic stories as much as we do. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell notification so you don't miss any exciting new videos dropping every Wednesday through Saturday. Happy Holidays 2024!